The message came on a Tuesday morning. Park Yuna was sitting in her office on Earth, drinking her second cup of tea, when the alert flashed on her screen. She read it 3 times before she believed it. The Galactic Concord wanted peace talks. Real peace talks. After 30 years of fighting with the Veth Dominion, someone had finally convinced both sides to sit down and talk. Yuna put down her tea. She was 62 years old. She had gray hair that she kept short and eyes that had seen too many wars. For her entire career, she had waited for this moment. Now it was here, and she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. She called her team within the hour. Lee Min-ho arrived first. He was 45, tall and thin, with a gentle face that made people trust him. He was Yuna's best negotiator. He could talk to anyone about anything and make them feel heard. Choi Yoonji came next. She was 38, an expert in alien cultures. She knew how other species thought, what they feared, what they wanted. Her job was to watch and understand. Baek Ji-woo followed her. He was 50, a legal specialist who knew every treaty and agreement in the galaxy. If there was a rule, he knew it. If there was a loophole, he could find it. The 2 youngest members of the team were Han Sung-ho and Yoon Nari. Both were in their late 20s. They were smart and quick and eager to prove themselves. Finally, there was Kim Do-yeon, Yuna's personal aide. He was 35 and had worked with her for 10 years. He knew how she thought before she thought it. They gathered in the conference room. Yuna looked at each of them. "The Concord has called for peace talks," she said. "We leave in 3 days." Nobody cheered. They all knew what this meant. The Veth were dangerous. They were tall, insect-like creatures with hard shells and 4 eyes. They did not trust humans. They had good reason not to. "What about security?" Min-ho asked. "Will we have military escort?" "No," Yuna said. The room went quiet. "No military," Yuna repeated. "No soldiers. No weapons. We go alone." Yoonji leaned forward. "Ambassador, the Veth have tried to kill human diplomats before. Last time. I know what happened last time." Yuna's voice was calm but firm. "That is exactly why we go without military escort. The other species need to see that we want peace. Really want it. If we bring soldiers, they will think we are there to fight." "And if the Veth attack us?" Sun-ho asked. Yuna looked at him. She looked at all of them. These were diplomats. They wore nice clothes and spoke soft words. They spent their days in meetings, talking about treaties and agreements. But every person in this room had served in the military. Every single one. It was required for all humans who wanted to work in galactic affairs. 3 years of training. 3 years of learning to fight, to survive, to kill if necessary. The galaxy did not know this. The galaxy thought human diplomats were soft, harmless. That was the point. "If the Veth attack us," Yuna said quietly, "we will handle it." Nobody asked what that meant. They all knew. The journey to the neutral station took 2 weeks. Their ship was small and unarmed, just as the Concord required. Yuna spent the time reviewing files on the Veth, their history, their culture, their leaders. Commander Torek would lead the Veth delegation. He was old for his species, almost 100 years. He had fought in the war since the beginning. He hated humans more than most. He lost 2 of his children in the Battle of Kepler Station, Unji told her. Human soldiers killed them. Yuna nodded slowly. She understood hate like that. She had lost people too. Everyone in this war had lost someone. "What does he want?" she asked. "He wants us gone. He wants humans pushed back to Earth and never allowed to leave again. That will not happen." "No, but he will ask for it anyway." When they finally arrived at the station, Yuna stood at the window and watched it grow larger. It was called neutral ground, and it floated in empty space far from any system. The Concorde had built it specifically for moments like this, a place where enemies could meet without advantage. Do-hyun came to stand beside her. "Ma'am, Concorde Security is asking about our personnel again. They want to know why we have no guards. Tell them we do not need guards. They do not believe us." Yuna smiled. It was a tired smile, but real. Good. Let them wonder. The truth was complicated. Humans were dangerous, not because they were stronger than other species. They were not. Not because they were faster. They were not that either. Humans were dangerous because of something inside them. Something old. Something that came from millions of years of survival on a hard world. When humans felt threatened, they did not run. They did not hide. They fought. They fought until the threat was gone or they were dead. There was no middle ground. This made them terrifying to other species. A human soldier was not just a fighter. A human soldier was a force of nature that would not stop. And that was exactly why human soldiers stayed away from peace talks. Because if something went wrong, if someone made a threat, if anyone made the humans feel that their people were in danger, those soldiers would not negotiate. They would not discuss. They would simply eliminate the threat. All of them. So Earth sent diplomats instead. People trained to talk. People trained to smile and nod and find common ground. People who had chosen to put their fighting instincts away and use their words instead. But the instincts were still there, buried deep, waiting. As the ship docked with neutral ground, Yuna took a deep breath. She was a diplomat. She was here to make peace. She would smile and talk and find a way to end this war. But if something went wrong, if her people were threatened, if everything fell apart, she knew exactly what would happen. And so did everyone else on her team. That was why Earth kept its military away from peace talks. Because the military knew what they were, and they knew they could not always control it. The doors of neutral ground opened, and Park Yuna led her team inside. The station was strange. The walls curved in ways that felt wrong. The lights kept changing color. The air smelled like nothing and everything at the same time. Yuna understood immediately. This place was designed to make everyone uncomfortable. No species would feel at home here. That was the point. 17 delegations had gathered in the main chamber. Yuna saw species she knew and species she had never met. Some were tall. Some were small. Some floated in the air. Some had too many eyes. Some had none at all. And across the room, watching her with 4 unblinking eyes, was Commander Torek. He was tall, even for a Veth. His shell was dark red, almost black at the edges. He stood completely still, like a statue made of blood and bone. His mandibles clicked slowly as he watched the humans enter. Yuna walked forward with her head high. Behind her, Minho and Yoonji kept their faces calm. Jiwoo carried his data tablet. Sunho and Nari stayed close, their eyes moving across the room, noting everything. "They are counting us," Minho whispered. "Looking for weapons." "Let them look," Yuna whispered back. "We have nothing to hide." They took their seats at the human table. It was small and placed between 2 larger delegations. The Concorde mediators, floating beings made of light and mist called the Orim, began to speak. The first day was boring. Introductions, rules, procedures. Everyone agreed not to bring weapons into the chamber. Everyone agreed not to shout. Everyone agreed to be polite. Yuna noticed that the rule about shouting was added after a human diplomat had raised his voice 40 years ago. 3 alien delegates had fainted. 1 had gone into a deep sleep and did not wake up for 2 weeks. Humans were loud. It was another thing they had to control. On the 3rd day, the real talks began. Commander Torek stood. His translator turned his clicking speech into flat, emotionless words. The Terran Republic must leave the Kepler corridor. Your presence, there is an act of war. Una stood as well. She kept her voice soft. With respect, Commander, the Kepler corridor was empty space when we built our stations. The Dominion claimed it afterward. Your expansion threatens our core worlds. Our expansion followed all Concord rules for unclaimed territory. Unclaimed by your definition. Back and forth. Hour after hour. Day after day. Yunji took notes on everything. She watched how Torak's shell changed color when he was angry. She watched how his smaller arms moved when he was lying. She watched and learned. Jiwoo checked every legal document. He found old treaties and forgotten agreements. He built cases and counter-arguments. He prepared for everything. Manho watched for openings. Moments when Torek seemed tired. Moments when his position might bend. He waited patiently, like a fisherman waiting for a bite, and Una led them all. She spoke softly. She smiled when she wanted to frown. She agreed when she could and disagreed when she had to. She never raised her voice. She never made threats. It was exhausting. On the seventh day, something changed. Una was taking a break in a small room near the chamber. Do-hyun brought her tea. Through the window, she could see the Veth delegation talking in urgent, clicking voices. Something is wrong, she said. Do-hyun nodded. Eunji noticed it too. Torek received a message this morning. He has been different since then. Different how? More aggressive. More desperate. When the talks resumed, Una saw it immediately. Torek's shell was darker. His movements were sharper. He was afraid of something. The Dominion requires guarantees, Torek announced. Strong guarantees of human non-aggression. Una raised one eyebrow. What kind of guarantees? Limits on your military. Caps on your fleets. Restrictions on your weapons. His four eyes fixed on her. Proof that humanity can control itself. The room went silent. Every delegation stopped moving. Everyone knew what Torek was really asking. Prove you are not monsters. Una felt something stir inside her. Something old and cold. She pushed it down. Commander, she said calmly, the Terran Republic has always controlled itself. That is why we are here talking instead of fighting. Your history says otherwise. Our history is complicated. So is yours. Torek's mandibles clicked rapidly. Anger. You destroyed 3 of our colony worlds. After your forces attacked our civilian transport ships. 4,000 humans died. Commander. Families. Children. That was a military action against. It was murder. Una's voice stayed soft, but something in it made Torek stop talking. We both have blood on our hands. That is why we need peace. Not because we are friends. Because if we keep fighting, there will be nothing left. Silence filled the chamber. The other delegations watched. The Urim floated without moving. Torek stared at Una for a long moment. Then, slowly, he sat down. We will consider your words, he said. That night, Una could not sleep. She lay in her quarters, staring at the ceiling. 30 years of war. Millions dead on both sides. And now she was supposed to make peace with someone who hated everything she was. There was a knock at her door. It was Minho. I could not sleep either, he said. They sat together in the small common room. Through the window, stars floated in the endless black. Do you think we can do this? Minho asked. Make peace with them? I do not know, Una admitted. But we have to try. Torek will never trust us. He lost his children to human soldiers. And I lost my husband to Veth soldiers. Una's voice was quiet. 20 years ago. He was on a research station near the border. They did not even warn them before they attacked. Minho looked at her with surprise. She had never told anyone on the team. I understand hate, Yuna continued. I felt it for a long time. But hate does not bring anyone back. It just creates more dead. So you chose to be a diplomat. I chose to try another way. She turned to face him. That is all any of us can do. Try. They sat in silence for a while longer. Outside, the stars kept burning, indifferent to the small beings below. Tomorrow, the talks would continue. There would be more arguments, more anger, more distrust. But Yuna would keep trying. She would smile and talk and search for common ground, because that was the choice she had made, and she would keep making it, day after day, until the war was over or she was dead. She was a diplomat. This was her fight, and she intended to win. The attack came on the 9th night. Yuna was in her quarters, reading through the day's notes. Outside, the station was quiet. Most delegations were asleep. The Urim had ended the talks early because everyone was tired. Then the lights went out. Yuna sat very still in the darkness. Emergency lights came on a moment later, painting everything in deep red. An alarm started screaming, then stopped suddenly. Too suddenly. Doyim? She called. No answer. She got up and moved to the door. It would not open. The power loss had sealed it shut. This was normal during emergencies. Safety protocol. But the silence was not normal. The station should have been full of sound. People moving. Voices calling. Emergency teams responding. Instead, there was nothing. Just the red light and the empty quiet. Then she heard screaming. Far away, but clear. Someone was dying out there. Yuna pressed her ear against the door. She heard footsteps. Heavy. Fast. Wrong. They did not sound like any species she knew. They sounded like something running on legs that did not bend the right way. A crash. Metal tearing. The screaming stopped. More footsteps. Closer now. Yuna backed away from the door. She was 62 years old. She had no weapons. She had not been in real combat for 40 years. Whatever was out there, she could not fight it. The door bent inward. Something stood in the gap. Yuna could not understand what she was seeing. It had too many arms, too many joints. Its skin was wet and dark, like something that had never seen light. It made a sound that was not quite breathing and not quite growling. It saw her. It came for her. Yuna screamed. And then Lee Minho was there. He came from the side passage, moving faster than any man his age should move. He had a metal pipe in his hands, torn from somewhere. He did not slow down. He did not think. He simply threw himself between the creature and Yuna. The pipe hit the thing's head with a wet crack. It staggered back. Minho hit it again. And again. And again. In the red light, his face was something Yuna had never seen before. Not anger. Anger was hot and wild. This was cold. Empty. The face of something that had stopped being human and become a machine. A killing machine. The creature fell. Minho kept hitting it until it stopped moving. Then he hit it twice more just to be sure. He turned to Yuna. He was covered in dark fluid. His breathing was rough. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" She stared at him. This was the man who wrote poetry in his free time. The man who cried at sad stories. The man who always spoke softly and never raised his voice. He had just beaten a monster to death with a pipe. "No," she managed. "What? What was that thing?" "I do not know." He was already checking the corridor. "I heard them attack the Urim delegation first. I count at least 12 on the station. We need to find the others." "Minho, how did you—" He looked at her. His eyes were calm. Too calm. the calm of a predator who knew exactly what it was doing. I was in the military for 3 years before I became a diplomat, ma'am. We all were. He smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. Every human here. More screaming echoed through the station. Somewhere, people were dying. Minho gripped his pipe. Stay behind me. They moved through the dark corridors like ghosts. Minho went first, checking every corner, every shadow. Yuna followed close behind. She had picked up a piece of broken metal from the floor. It was not much of a weapon, but it was something. They found Han Sunho in the communications room. He was trying to send a distress signal, but something was jamming it. His left arm hung at a wrong angle, clearly broken. On the floor near him were 2 dead creatures, their skulls crushed by a fire extinguisher that lay nearby, dented and covered in dark blood. There were 3 of them, Sunho said. His voice was flat. Shock had not hit yet. I got 2. The 3rd ran away. Good work, Minho said. Can you still function? Sunho looked at his broken arm. He shrugged with his good shoulder. I can still fight if I need to. They found Yunari next. She had gathered a group of survivors in a storage room. They were arena mediators, too terrified to move. There were members of other delegations, shaking and crying. And there was Nari, standing at the door with a chair leg in her hands. I have organized the ones who cannot fight, she reported. They are in the center, away from the walls. I have given weapons to everyone who can use them. She was 28 years old. She looked like she could be someone's daughter. She sounded like a general. Choi Yoonji and Baek Ji-woo arrived together. They were covered in blood, but not their own. They were leading a group of Veth civilians, including children with cracked shells, who cried without sound. The Veth guards are all dead, Yoonji said. These things killed the armed ones first. Smart predators, Minho observed. Not smart enough. Yoonji's smile was cold. They did not expect us. Finally, Commander Torek arrived. 2 of his aides supported him. He was badly hurt, pale fluid leaking from a deep cut across his body. His translator was broken, making his words hard to understand. What? Are these things? We do not know, Yuna said. We are working on it. Your people, they fight. Why you your people fight? You are diplomats. Yuna looked at her team. Minho, bloody and calm, already planning what to do next. Sunho, broken arms strapped to his chest, still trying to call for help. Nari, protecting civilians she had never met. Yoonji and Ji-woo, carrying Veth children like they were their own. These were her people. Soft-spoken diplomats who wrote reports and attended meetings. Who had all been trained to kill. We have been fighting since we lived in caves, Yuna said quietly. It is part of us. We cannot remove it. We can only control it. But you are, Commander. She met his 4 eyes. There is a reason Earth keeps its military away from peace talks. It is not because we are afraid of our soldiers. It is because we are afraid of what happens when humans stop being polite. The lights flickered. Somewhere in the station, something howled. A hunting call. More were coming. Right now, Yuna continued, polite is not going to save anyone. So I suggest you let my people work. She picked up her piece of metal. Around her, her team readied their weapons. Broken pipes, chair legs, pieces of debris. Nothing designed for combat. But they were humans. They would make it work. The hunt was about to begin. Minho spread a rough map on the floor. He had drawn it from memory, marking every corridor, every room, every possible hiding place. There are 18 creatures on this station, he said. We have killed 5. 13 remain. The survivors gathered around him, humans Veth, members of other delegations. Some could fight, Some could not. All of them were terrified, all except the humans. They hunt in groups of 2 or 3, Minho continued. They go for armed targets first. They are fast, but they do not see well in bright light. How do you know that? One of the Veth asked. I watch them move. They avoid the emergency lights. They hunt from shadows. Commander Torek was sitting against the wall. His wounds had been wrapped with torn cloth. He was weak, but he was listening. You speak like a soldier, he said. I was a soldier, Minho replied. A long time ago, before I learned to use words instead of weapons. He looked at the map again. We will split into 3 teams. Each team will have 2 humans and any volunteers from other species. 2 humans? A delegate from a species called the Suan looked confused. You only have 6 people. 6 is enough. Nari had already organized the non-fighters. The Arim could not fight. Their bodies were made of mist and light. The Suan were too small. Some of the other species had never seen violence in their lives. You will stay here, she told them. Block the doors. Do not open them for anyone except us. If something breaks through, she handed them the weapons she had made. Sharpened metal. Broken furniture. Aim for the eyes. Do not stop hitting until it stops moving. A young Orim floated near her. It was crying, if creatures made of light could cry. I do not know how to hurt anything, it said. I looked at it with something like kindness. Then stay behind the ones who do. We will protect you. The hunt began. Minho led the first team. He took Yunji and 3 Veth volunteers. They moved through the eastern section of the station, checking each room, each corridor. The Veth were brave, but they did not know how to move quietly. They did not know how to work together. Nho taught them. Watch the corners, he whispered. Never stand in front of a door. Let me go first. They found 2 creatures in the medical bay. The things were eating something. Minho did not let himself see what. He moved fast. The pipe swung. 1 creature fell. Yunji took the second, jamming a piece of metal into its throat. The Veth watched with 4-eyed horror. That is how it is done, Minho said. Quick, no hesitation. Can you do it? One of the Veth, a young female with a cracked shell, nodded slowly. I can try. Trying is enough. Jiwoo led the second team. He was not as fast as Minho, but he was careful, methodical. He had studied the creatures during the first attacks, noting their weaknesses. Their joints bend backward, he told his team. Hit them there, and they cannot stand. He took Sunho, who fought with 1 arm and a sling. He took 2 Veth soldiers who had survived the first wave. Together, they cleared the western section. Sunho was in pain. Every movement made his broken arm scream. But he kept going. He kept fighting. Because that was what humans did. They found a group of survivors trapped in a storage room. 3 delegates from a species called the Dileth. They were small, fragile creatures who had never seen violence before this night. We are here to help, Jiwoo said softly. Come with us. We will keep you safe. One of the Dileth looked at him. Its large eyes were wet with tears. Why? It asked. We are not your people. Why would you protect us? Jiwoo paused. It was a good question. The Dileth had never helped humanity. They had never been allies. They had barely acknowledged humans existed, but they were scared. They were helpless. And Jiwoo knew what that felt like. Because someone has to, he said. The third team was led by Yuna herself. She had not fought in decades. Her body was old. Her hands were meant for holding pens, not weapons. But when she picked up her piece of metal and walked into the dark, she felt something wake up inside her. The old instincts. The hunter's heart. The thing that had kept her ancestors alive when they were small and weak and surrounded by predators. Nari walked beside her. So did two Veth, who had volunteered after seeing the humans fight. They found the largest group of creatures in the main hall. 6 of them gathered around what had been the central fountain. They were making sounds to each other, communicating, planning. Yun watched them from the shadows. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were shaking, but her mind was clear. "We cannot fight 6 at once," she whispered. "No," Nari agreed, "but we can split them up." It was Nari's plan. Simple but effective. Make noise at one end of the hall. Draw some of them away. Kill those. Then kill the rest. Yuna made the noise. She banged her metal against the wall, once, twice. 3 creatures turned and came running. Nari was waiting for them. She moved like water, like something that had been born to fight. The first creature died before it knew she was there. The second took longer. The third almost got away, but one of the Veth caught it from behind. In the hall. The remaining 3 creatures were confused. Their pack was shrinking. Something was hunting them. Yuna came out of the shadows. "Over here," she said. They came for her. She stood her ground. She was 62 years old, a grandmother, a diplomat who had spent her life trying to avoid violence. But when the first creature reached her, she swung her weapon and she did not stop. When it was over, she stood among the bodies, breathing hard. Blood dripped from her hands. Blood that was not hers. Nari appeared beside her. "Are you all right?" Yuna looked at her. "I think so. I had forgotten what this felt like. What does it feel like?" Yuna thought about it. The fear, the adrenaline, the strange, terrible satisfaction of surviving. "Like being alive," she said quietly. "Really alive." For the first time in years. The hunt lasted 6 hours. When it was done, all 18 creatures were dead. 37 survivors from 12 species huddled together in the safe room. And 6 human diplomats stood guard, covered in blood, weapons still in their hands. Sunho finally got a signal out. Rescue ships were coming. 2 hours away, Minho sat down heavily. The adrenaline was fading. His hands started to shake. "We did it," he said. Yuna sat beside him. Around them, aliens looked at the humans with new eyes. Not just fear anymore. Something else. Respect. "Yes," she said. "We did." 3 weeks passed. The rescue ships had taken everyone to safety. The dead were counted. The wounded were healed. Investigators came to study the creatures and find out where they had come from. The answer was not surprising. A small faction from a minor species had created the monsters. They wanted the peace talks to fail. They wanted humans and Veth to keep fighting forever. War was good for their business. They were arrested. They would face justice. But that was not what anyone was talking about. Everyone was talking about the humans. Reports spread across the galaxy. Stories of 6 unarmed diplomats who had killed 18 engineered predators. Stories of an old woman who had beaten a creature to death with a piece of metal. Stories of a man with a broken arm who had kept fighting anyway. The other species did not know what to think. They had always known humans were dangerous. Everyone knew that. Human soldiers were famous across the galaxy. They fought like demons. They never stopped. They would die before they gave up. But soldiers were supposed to be dangerous. That was their job. Diplomats were supposed to be soft, weak, harmless. These humans have been anything but harmless. When the peace talks resumed, everything was different. The same chamber, the same tables, the same delegations from 17 species. But the way they looked at the human delegation had changed. Ambassador Park Yuna walked in with her head high. Behind her came Minto, Yoonji, Jiwoo, Sunho, and Nari. They wore clean clothes now. Their wounds had healed. They looked like diplomats again. But everyone remembered what they had looked like covered in blood. Commander Torek was waiting. His wounds had healed too, leaving pale scars across his dark shell. He stood when the humans entered. It was a mark of respect. He had never done that before. The talks began. The Dominion has reconsidered certain positions, Torek announced. We are prepared to accept shared control of the Kepler corridor. Both species will have equal rights there. A murmur went through the chamber. This was more than anyone had expected. The Veth had been demanding full control for years. Additionally, Torek continued, the Dominion formally requests military consultation with the Terran Republic. We wish to learn from your training methods, your survival instincts, He paused, searching for the right word. Your nature. Una nodded slowly. We would be honored to share what we know, Commander. The talks continued for 3 more days. Every point that had been stuck for weeks suddenly became easy. Both sides made compromises. Both sides found common ground. And everywhere Una went, the other delegations moved aside to let her pass. Not with fear. Not exactly. But with a new kind of awareness. They looked at her the way small animals look at something that could eat them but chooses not to. On the final day, Torek approached her privately. I must understand something, he said. His translator was working perfectly now. Your people, your diplomats, they killed without hesitation, without weapons, without training. How is this possible? Una thought about how to explain it. How did you describe millions of years of evolution? How did you explain what it meant to survive on a world where everything wanted to eat you? We are afraid, she said finally. Torek's shell shifted color. Confusion. You showed no fear. Not fear of dying. Fear of losing. She looked out the window at the stars. When something threatens what humans love, when our people are in danger, something happens inside us. We stop thinking. We stop feeling. We just act. Act how? We become efficient. She turned to face him. We do whatever is necessary to remove the threat. No matter what. No matter how. You make it sound like a disease. Maybe it is. Maybe it is a gift. I do not know. She shook her head. What I know is that we have to control it. Every day. Every moment. We have to choose to be civilized. Choose? Being peaceful does not come naturally to us, Commander. We have to work at it. We have to practice it. We have to remind ourselves over and over that words are better than violence. Torek was silent for a long time. That is why you send diplomats, he said slowly. Not because you are harmless, but because you are trying to be harmless. Yes, and if you stop trying? Una met his 4 eyes. Then we become very, very dangerous. More silence. The stars burned outside. Somewhere, ships were traveling between worlds, carrying the news of what had happened. I believe, Torek said finally, that I am grateful your generals were not here. Una smiled. It was a real smile, warm and tired. So am I, Commander. So am I. He extended one of his smaller arms. It was a human gesture. A handshake. He had learned it during the talks. She took it. I hated your people for a long time, Torek said quietly. You killed my children. I wanted to destroy every human in the galaxy. I know. But you saved my people on this station? You saved Veth children. You risked your lives for species you had never met. He clicked his mandibles slowly. I do not understand you. I do not think I ever will. But I no longer hate you. That is a start, Una said. Yes, a start. The treaty was signed the next day. 30 years of war ended with names on a document. Both sides agreed to peace. Both sides agreed to work together. Both sides agreed to try. When Una returned to Earth, she was called a hero. There were ceremonies, awards, speeches. She smiled through all of it. But what she remembered most was not the ceremony. It was the moment on the station, standing over a dead creature covered in blood, feeling more alive than she had in decades. That was the truth about humans. The truth they did not talk about in polite company. The truth that made other species afraid. Humans liked fighting. Deep down, in the oldest parts of their brains, they were built for it. Evolution had made them hunters, predators, survivors. Civilization was just a mask. A choice, a daily decision to be something other than what they were. And that was why Earth kept its military away from peace talks. Because soldiers did not wear masks. Soldiers did not pretend. Soldiers were honest about what humans really were. And that honesty would terrify the galaxy. So humanity sent its diplomats instead. Soft-spoken men and women who smiled and talked and found common ground. People who had chosen, every single day, to be better than their instincts. People who could kill 18 monsters with broken furniture. People who could shake hands with their enemies afterward. People like Park Una. She sat in her garden at home, drinking tea, watching her grandchildren play. She was 62 years old. She was tired. She was at peace. But somewhere inside her, the old instincts were still there. Still waiting. Still ready. That was the truth about humans. They were always ready. And the galaxy was learning to be grateful that most of the time, they chose not to show it. The end.